All right, awesome. I've been thinking about this episode of the podcast for a long time and calling it the Russo brothers. It's kind of a play on the famous Hollywood directors, but this is Hull's own Russo brothers, Nick and Chris Russo. Thank you so much for coming on. Jake Valancourt.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I reached out to Chris pretty early and he was very receptive, which was much, much appreciated. But again, I think the great place to start, we just want to dive into your background, your connections to Hull. And I know a little bit about Chris, I think 4 or 5 years ahead of me. And Nick, I know absolutely nothing about other than a few rumors about FEMA and that sort of thing. Ooh. So I think a good place to start is your background, how your family got to Hull, like the very first year, where was, house, what kind of, all that kind of stuff.
All right. Yeah. I'm a Hull kid. I moved here from Lexington via West Point. I was actually born in the hospital in West Point. My parents were both there. Dad was an MP and mom was a nurse's assistant. So I was born in the hospital at West Point, moved to Hull when I was 2 and been in and out ever since. Went to school here, went to high school here. My family is here. The kids are here. Half of the grandkids are here. The other half are down in Massapequa, Long Island. So, pretty much this has been a home for us for my entire life and for the girls too. One of my daughters, Heather, she did move to Long Island after she got married, but she's still a Hull kid too. So it's a whole family of Hull kids. And so it's been a long time. I mean, I graduated in 70. So,
1970.
Yeah.
I would not guess that, by the way.
It's been a long time and it's been wonderful. I had the ability to leave and come back. And every time you do, for me anyway, there's 2 things immediately you want to do. You want to connect with family and you want to roll the windows down and smell the salt. Because if you're out of here and you don't have that salt smell, that's one of the things that the first thing, the second thing I look for. So that's where this all started.
Your family never had been to Hull?
No.
Family here?
They moved. Well, actually, that's not true. My grandparents bought a house on Beach Ave, Q Street.
I live on the corner of Q Street.
Okay. So right on the beach where the newest house was their duplex. And so I literally grew up on the beach right there. And they would be there part-time. They had a full-time home in Lexington, and they would come down in summers. So that's where I grew up. And the house was, I don't know if you ever got there or not.
I did only, and later on, it was directly on the beach. I'd go all the way down the Beach Ave on Q Street, take a left, first house on the right. Right where to the left of the opening was down there, across from the Campanelli's house.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like Ruckton Campanelli's?
No, Campanelli's. They were a family that was down here. Super nice, yeah.
So we honestly, we moved around a lot when we were kids, ended up in the projects at D Street, grew up in the projects in D Street. And
is that right?
Yeah. So that's where I went through high school in the projects. And obviously Chris was there for a little bit longer. Go ahead.
You're talking D Street Hull?
Yes. 28 D Street.
Because I'm thinking, when you're saying D Street, I'm thinking South Boston. That's
everyone does.
Yeah.
Because there are projects there also.
Yes. Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that.
We call them the projects, right? It was affordable housing at the our welfare at that time. So it was a quicker walk to the Memorial School for the block cheese, quite frankly. So it wasn't so bad,
Government cheese, gotta love it.
Yeah.
So I think we should touch on your siblings quickly. And again, I know Michelle.
Yeah, I think there were 4 of us. Myself, our younger brother Michael, who passed away, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe. So, and then Michelle and Chris.
And you and Chris are pretty far apart, 10 years. So
yeah, 10 years. Yeah. But it's strangely enough, we're also the closest.
Yeah. Maybe the family.
What do you credit your kind of drive for? There's a lot of people who, you know, do enough to get by. They do their job. They show up every day and all that, but they don't seek higher level.
That's a great question, Jerry. I think our upbringing and home life was not perfect, and by any stretch. And so I think my drive came partly from anger, to be honest, and a desire to make sure that I wasn't compared with anybody else. So the only way you do that is you have to make your own name. So I think really that was part of the driving force. And next, I love to learn. I love people. I love to do things that are different and that are new. So I think that was a lot of the driving force. I was very lucky to grow up here. I was one of those big fish in a little pond, and that was exactly what I needed. You know, I was an athlete. I had some pretty good fortune there. Not a superstar by any chance, but I had it gave me the ability to see where I didn't want to be. And, and I think that maybe might have been more important, as I always knew what I didn't want. It took me a while to figure out what I did want.
Last question from me, and then I think we should move to, I'm sure Jake and Kim have some questions, but you grew up in the 70s, you graduated in 70. So we're talking about Hull schools now, first grade classes being as small as 27 kids coming up in the first grade class. 1970, how big was your graduating class? And I imagine it was like Hingham trying to make a team now where there's 100 kids trying out for every sport.
Wow.
It's sad. My graduating class, it wasn't a huge one. It wasn't the biggest, but it was 160, I believe, something like that. And I will tell you, that really has had an impact on me, is watching over the years the school system, of the enrollment continue to drop. I coached high school football, and I coached my girls. I was the only coach they had until they were freshmen. So I've coached every female sport from soccer to basketball to softball, and I coached the high school varsity for 15 years. When we were winning Super Bowls. And so to see 2 years ago, I coached my grandson's youth football team, and we had 12 kids. That's just not sustainable. So I feel bad for them. We was at the high school yesterday watching my granddaughter's lacrosse game. And they have bigger numbers, I think, this year than they had last year. They probably had enough for a JV team, but for whatever reason, they didn't have one. So it's the numbers are not sustainable. And as an athlete, as a whole kid, that breaks my heart.
Yeah, tough thing.
It's interesting that you're talking about class size, because last night when I went to the League of Voters, Hingham, it's Hingham Hall Cohasset. There were two young ladies there. They're 16, so I was really kind of fascinated that they're getting into this so young. And one of the young ladies, they go to the South Shore Charter School, but one of the young ladies lives on D Street, and she said, "We're like the only ones. Half the street goes away for Florida." So even though she's not in the house, I mean, part of the reason she's not in the house schools is that she wanted to be with more kids. Mm-hmm. Is that a trend?
I don't know. You're more current than I am on that stuff. Yeah. I know what the kids are dealing with.
I think that, access and the ability to go to private schools, tech schools, social vote tech, and that became more viable. They made it a little more flexible. I think it was cost prohibitive, I think, for a long time. And then some families, whether it was, the need for bigger sports teams or different curriculum or different needs for their student, their child, they migrated and they moved and left. It's not a push against the public schools.
Well, no, I'm not saying that at all, because the sports team are phenomenal, because I see cheerleaders winning prizes. I see the Pirates in the news all the time doing really, really well. It's just a contrast.
Yeah, amazing what we do with little numbers, right? All these teams are very nimble.
Oh my goodness! And what a field
they still seem to win, don't they?
Oh, it's very Friday Night Lights. I mean, the school buses when the cheerleaders are getting ready. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And they're all descendants of you know, guys like you that have lived here and grown up here. So it's great.
Another generation of Hull kids.
Jake,
Well,
you
was
must have
Mr.
something
Menace
called.
a coach too?
What's
No.
that? King?
Wasn't Mr. Menace a coach too?
He was.
Peter's father. So we started out our podcast talking
Yeah.
about this generational theme.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, we should shout out to Peter. It's his birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday, Peter.
I've heard that.
He's an Aries too.
Today
Thoughts, David?
is March 31st.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why don't we turn it over to Jake? Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah. So this will be for Chris or Nick or really anybody that's with us tonight. But when you think about Hull, this is what I wanted to ask you. I like to characterize it this way, right? Nobody goes to Hull by accident. And why is that? It's a destination. You know, you can go through Hingham, you can go through Weymouth, you can go through Scituate or Cohasset or whatever. There's a lot of places you can go through to get somewhere else. You can't go through Hull to get anywhere. You have to go there with intentionality. And I think that means that the character, the personality of the people in town and the town itself has a personality and a character that is maybe not unique, but really uncommon. And I just, in thinking about that, what does it mean for you? What does it represent? And do you associate with that? Do you have a certain feeling about Hull when you put it, or look at it and think about it through that framework? How do you connect with that idea that it's special because everyone here has chosen to be here in one way or another?
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? I think it's a destination for the people who live here, because it is that special, right? We're insulated from a lot of things out from the outside world. Once you get home down here, you're safe. And I have this conversation with my kids quite a bit about, when they were younger, like, I can't wait to move. I can't wait to get out of here like every other kid, right? And then all of a sudden they hit 20, 21, 22, right? As they grow, they're like, wow, thank God we grew up down there. Right. So that piece of that puzzle is very unique to the town. And when Nick touched on the Hull kids, right, and talked about growing up here, we were discovered over the last, 5 to 7 years, right? I mean, what happened here was people realized, wow, what an amazing place at the time, right? Affordable, convenient, ferries, beaches, unique in itself to our restaurants and our vibe in this town, right? Which is, I think it's pretty freaking cool, honestly. And so, I look at it as a blessing, Jake, honestly, that I've been here my entire life, almost 63 years of that. And I think more people caught on to that pretty quick, realizing that they can wake up here in this spot and have such a great life. We have our demographics changed dramatically, as you know, right? So people were downsizing, now we're coming at a thrust, honestly, to get here. And part of that is the community. A big part of that is the community, right? And the other part of that is that we're not as I want to be kind about this, right? We're a very kind community, in my opinion, with a lot of empaths. People in general look out for each other in this town, and that's the theme that draws people here. We're not a big city. We're not at the Hingham size. We're certainly not the size of Weymouth, but we're unique and different to all of them. In my opinion, from being here as long as I have, that the driving force is there's a blessing in the winter solitude aside the storm.
Most winters.
Right. There's a little bit of a curse in the summer when, we're inundated for 2.5 months where people are kind of pissed off for 60 or 70 days. And then it just goes back to normal. And all of a sudden we're back together. We're at the bakery, we're at this place, we're at another place.
I owe you an apology, Chris, by the way, for Juneteenth 2024.
Everything was the basic nightmare, Kim, for the whole fire department. I mean, it was,
Oh my God. I'm yelling at you for my brown water. And I'm like, the man can't do everything. Oh,
That's all right.
This day I'll always apologize to you. And
Oh, no worries. It's fine.
but to your point, that that bottleneck day really just is ingrained in my mind because I had an appointment in Hingham and it took me an hour to Jake's, and it took another 45 minutes to get to Q Street, which is insane.
Yeah.
I think that
This
was
is going to
one
work
thing,
on
though.
a toll gate and keep people out of this.
I don't know what the answer to it is, Jerry. Honestly, we've had summers that have been extremely warm and hot where, there wasn't all that influx of traffic, or there was this thing over Juneteenth. Or there's a lot of factors that go into us getting bottlenecked, but there's one way in and one way out. That's at the end of the day. And when you add an extra, 15, 20,000 people, guess what? Sooner or later they have to leave, and they have to come. So it's like, you can be mad about it, or what I do, wait till they're gone, then I drive through town unless there's something going on.
Yeah,
I moved last year from 8th Street, now closer to the Hingham side at the Avalon. But what I do is I'm a pilot, so I keep a close watch on the weather, regardless of whether I'm flying or not. But I'm always aware of what the weather is coming, and when I see weather that I think is favorable beach weather, whether it's a work day or a weekend or a holiday, I make sure my groceries are all stocked up. If friends or family, you want to come, you come on in the day before and you leave the day after. We have a nice time together, and we walk or bike everywhere. We don't get in the car and go anywhere. We stick in home. You want to go to the beach, whatever, walk or bike. And you know what? You couldn't be happier. As soon as you try to drive during that, you're going to need everything. So just don't subject yourself to the emotional roller coaster. You say, I'm walking everywhere or I'm biking somewhere. And life is just, it's the whole lifestyle that you fall in love with. That's how I.
Absolutely. This is my second tour.
And I know, Jake, I think one of the things that I've referred to the town for years now, it's an island. It's a peninsula with an island mentality.
I call Hingham the mainland. Like when I leave here,
people are very quick here to circle the wagons and, to support or defend or whatever they need to do. And it's been that way forever. It's always been that way. Yeah, it's peninsula, but people here are very independent, and it's very much like being on an island.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Nick, I lied when I said I don't know anything about you. I know, I think your son-in-law, right? Matt Riley is a phenomenal person.
Yeah, he's
a lot of hockey with him.
Oh, is that right?
He's a unicorn in that hockey is the only place you can go, and there's an actual fist fight. Okay, like this day and age, there'll be a fist fight, and these guys will square off, and they will beat the crap out of each other, and maybe your brother will jump in, come over the top. This happens, and after it's over, they shake hands and everything's okay.
Yeah, and everybody has a beer afterwards.
Yeah,
it's the beauty of hockey. Yeah, he's a good man, and great, and very good family man. Obviously, the Rileys are a big family in there. They've been here for years too. So, very fortunate to have Matt in the family.
Based, like my daughters bought in Hull, which is to me really, I appreciate that, and I'm sure you do too, right? They're based in Hull. It's a big part of the reason why everybody's anchored here to a certain extent.
It's hard, I find over the years that friends that I have, people that I've worked with, and people I've known here in Hull, they do leave, but for some reason, you always end up back here.
Mm-hmm.
There are more and more stories, and some of the people we're talking to have exactly for 3 or 4 decades they left, and maybe they got to come back because they have to take care of a family member, or they just get drawn back.
Mm-hmm.
It's very common.
Yeah, it really is, and it's this town, and I personally think it's the people, and then it's the ocean. Anyone who's grown up here and spent some time in the water, they know, salt water heals everything.
Mm-hmm.
Physically, mentally, that's.
You hit a really good point there, because this is my second tour. I lived here in the early 90s, went out to a bunch of different places, came back because my mother got sick, God rest her soul. But there's that one point when you drive into Hull that you feel the air change. You feel the blood pressure decrease. It lulls you through the winter. It's a vibe that's hard. I mean, I think I'm describing it, but unless you feel it.
Yeah. That is the truth. Once you pass the courthouse, I've come back into town. I've had a late flight from when I was working with the government or something, and it can be 2 a.m. and below zero. The first thing I do when I get past the courthouses, they roll the windows down. I want that salt. I need that.
I get that.
We haven't officially introduced Chris. Chris is the Hull Fire Chief. Nick is the former Hull Fire Chief. And I'd like to hear a little bit about Chris, your earliest like memories in Hull growing up. Sounds like your brother, came here when he was 2. You were born here, right?
Yeah, Quincy, for sure. And I moved around a little bit down here. We lived in the village for a small amount of time. Then apartments from here to here and there and there. And then eventually when I was, I think 8 or 9, moved into to the projects on D Street. And that's where I grew up and was.
Have you ever left Hull and got an apartment out of town for any reason?
Yeah, I left right after high school. I went with 8 friends to Florida with like $100 in my pocket because we were going to go find our riches down there. And it was long, 16, 18 months down there, not having any money. And
Common story.
being, I graduated early. I'm an October baby. So I was the youngest in my class when I graduated in 1980. So that was a good life lesson that I had to come back home. And it did a few things and some other jobs up there before I went on the fire department. So, interesting. Yeah, I've been gone a little bit, travel a little bit, not abroad too much, but yeah.
Yeah, we ended up moving out of town a little bit, and obviously I moved to Hingham for 19 years.
Yeah.
But when we came back, I mean,
Till today.
the town pulled us back in, and my son's actually with the driving force behind it. My oldest son, Rocky, was a freshman at Hingham High, and just, he really he had more friends in Hull than Hingham, and he wanted to come back in the worst of ways. So
Yeah, quite a bond with our kids down here. It's amazing. I see with both my kids. It's really cool, and it's a continuum. It still goes on. They go off to college and other things or business or whatever it may be, and that connection of these Hull kids is really special in my opinion.
it is. Do you have, Chris, do you have any stories, funny stories you'd like to share? We really would like you to talk about what you'd like to talk about, but anything like, even thinking way back, like any crazy funny stories.
Well,
We had, I think Peter Menace mentioned somebody streaking at one point. He mentioned
that's
his
right.
name. I'm not going to mention it
yeah,
now.
there's been a lot going on. I will tell you a funny story. My senior year in high school, I wasn't an athlete like my brother. I was,
Guilty.
fighting for my life at 129 pounds, graduating high school, So I would happen to be strolling down by the beach down by Paragon, and a bunch of the boys pulled up in their pickup truck and said, "Hey, listen, we're going to the concert down at Cape Cod Coliseum, Jay Giles.
Oh,
You want to go?" And I'm like, these guys are actually inviting me. There's all the football players and everyone that was cool. I wasn't in that
It's
group.
like a dream come true.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm in. I'm like, I just gotta go home and get some clothes. I had a pair of shorts on, flip flops, no shirt, and I think a little red bandana around my neck. That was kind of cool thing then.
Yep.
And I just climbed to the back of the truck and off we went. It was with a bunch of Hull kids. It was Ricky Alfaro, Joe Samari, Dave Higgins, Doc Stevens, you name it. This was a crew. And so I climbed to the back of the truck and off we took off to the Coliseum down at Cape Cod. We ended up having front row seats to Jay Giles, which was awesome. And on top of that, the opening act, I believe, I could be wrong, I believe was Ted Nugent
I believe that you're right, because I was so jealous of the older kids going to that show.
And it was the best time ever that I had as a young kid growing up in Holland, being accepted into the crew down there. We had a lot of fun down there. We went over, Long Pond after whatever they're now off the Cape, and did our swimming after the concert and slept in a rest area in the back of the truck for a day in the fog and came back freezing cold. But it was a cool experience.
Jake was at this concert too, but at the Boston Garden with the chaperone because I was too young.
So I have a couple of Chris stories. I think I'd be remiss if I don't share these, Chris, and I hope you don't mind, but
No, I don't.
I think I met you probably when I was 12, 13, and we play street hockey on East Street.
Sure.
and you were with Timmy Marshall, a bunch of those guys, you know, again, much older than me, but I was hanging around.
We had gangs, Jerry, before they thought there was gangs around. This before we had gangs. There was the Project Gang, the D Street Gang, the E Street Gang, the Strawberry Hill Gang. There was gangs in hell. Everyone, no one knew about this stuff. You know, we were hanging out, whether it was street hockey, wiffle ball, right, softball. Like this was blood and money for us.
Mentioned in public, and I've gotten nasty messages back from the public about offending people that live in the village. But the village, when I was a little kid, was a dangerous place. You didn't just walk around down there. Can you back me up on that or not?
It's the truth. There's a lot of tough kids down the village. Hey,
There
plus
was-
one house
yeah.
you wrote a little bit in Channel Street. You know,
You didn't. When
Yeah.
I grew up, you didn't come to the village if you didn't live there in the summer.
yeah. Hey, listen, the same thing in the process. You came over there inside the chain link fence where we used to hang our clothes to dry. You know,
But I don't think Nick has ever heard this story. And I was in college, and I had, you know, I knew Chris I hadn't seen him a lot, but he was always very nice. He wasn't one of the guys that would, you know, give you a hard time and beat you up and stuff like that. So I appreciated that. But I was in college, and a bunch of my buddies, I think I got a job at Connie Forum when it first opened, redoing the, you know, putting the basketball court down in the transition. So we went to Punter's Pub afterwards, and I never heard of the place. And they said, we have to go to this place. So very cold, very dark, bunch of small rooms. And one of the rooms was a pool room. There's a pool game going on. That was
bad for us.
And I see Chris in there, and he's playing pool. It looks like he's playing pool, but there's 3 or 4 guys in the room, and they're playing pool. And there's this big monster of a man, and Chris has got his eyes locked on him. And for about a minute and a half, I said hello to Chris, and he said hi, he shook my hand, but then he just eyes again. I think I told you some of this story when I met him a couple of years ago, but in about 90 seconds, 2 minutes in, sure enough, I'm circling now because I can kind of sense what's going on. And these two are you can see them, and it's just eventually, it just collided. And impressive.
That's a great
You
learn.
can see.
Yeah, that was Punter's Pub. My buddy Stevie owned that place. God rest his soul.
Well, you
Yeah,
talking about Steve's on A Street?
The one,
Steve's? On
no,
A-
no, Steve was the owner of Punter's Pub up in
Oh,
Northeastern.
okay.
And
Sorry.
I was friends up there because there was a point in time in my life where I had literally had no place to live. And Timmy Marshall put me in his dorm in Northeastern. Right.
Really?
Yeah, he goes, come live with me. I think he was at 115 Hemingway Street.
Fun.
So, and I was working multiple jobs. I was doing demolition up at, before I got in the fire department, I was up at Orient Heights by the power plant doing demo up there, tending bar at nights and,
Wow.
trying to survive, but it was great. He gave me his meal card and I was like, I thought this was the best thing ever. I said, I'm going to college. I'm going to college. I'm having a fall. Right. And I was the only one that had any money because I was working. Those guys were all on a food card. So I'm buying the beers and, they're paying for my food and my room and board, which I thought was kind of cool.
Mhm.
But Punter's Pub,
That's a great story.
yeah,
It
but
is.
Punter's Pub was a staple for me there. And that nice gentleman who wasn't being kind that night, it didn't fare so well for him.
Were you working there, or were you just?
No,
hanging out?
I was hanging out there. That was
Yeah.
one of the nights Stevie was saying to me, he goes, I just wish you'd go home tonight. And I said, I was.
So let's transition now into, again, you're a regular guy, and you come from, both of you come from unscrabble 1960s, 1970s whole background, which is big, huge families without a lot of money. And that's why people came here. And now it's really transitioned a lot, but what's your drive? I mean, you by all rights, you should be just, regular guy.
You know what? As they say, we've been best buddies for a long time, right? So there's certain things that motivate you. And he was certainly one of my major motivations growing up because I was not easy to handle without question of doubt. I would suggest that he probably tried to fire me 3 different times when I first came on the fire department because, I was in my 20s and, feeling my 20s,
To be fair, people might say that about you now.
there's no question about it. Yeah, I'm a little calmer now, Jerry. It's,
Oh, you're like the patience of Job.
it takes weeks to build up now for me to get, to that level. But no, I honestly, I got a good sense of, and, Nick said it well, of where, and not disrespectful of people's paths, of where I did want to be. And I've always worked 1, 2, or 3 jobs. I don't have a problem with that. And I had a different desire. I mean, I've had a lot of jobs and owned some companies and done some things. So I'm fortunate, and the fire department was an absolute parachute for me. For a young kid coming out of a really dysfunctional household, and everyone, going their own separate ways. My brother dying, my older brother going off, my sister going her direction. It's like, it's me, as the baby in the house. And, it's one of those things. I think that, I grew resilient.
That's a great word. That's a
to
great
lots of
word.
things.
I get that.
Yeah, some good, some bad, right, Kim? It's like, listen, everyone has their story to tell. There's no question about that.
Yeah,
My brother who lives in Florida, he's like, when you said dysfunctional, didn't we all grow up that way? And like, I don't know if everybody did, but if
Yeah,
you did, you had to learn how to.
it's great. It's very authentic. And I think everyone, you see people, you think everyone has a perfect life, right? And I think
Mhm.
everyone has a ton of problems and everyone
Oh,
has
yeah,
a regular
100%.
life. But there are, like I said, there are certain people that they show up every single day, or, they have the dedication and the drive that it takes to achieve a much higher level than the average person, and I'll use Jake as an example. And I did a lot of hiring in my previous background, but pilots, when I had a pilot come across my desk, I said, oh my God, you know what you have to go through to become a pilot? And
Sure.
you have to maintain in terms of, you know, you can't do anything wrong, and you're responsible for the entire plane before you take off, and just the whole thing. I'm not that person. I'm not going to do that. And I have mad respect for someone like that, as an example.
Yeah,
So,
agreed.
how about we transition back to Nick for a minute on the career piece? And, you were in Hull Fire as chief for what years?
I was there from 73 to 2002, I think.
Wow.
I was chief from 84 to 2002.
Did I hear you talk
Wow.
about FEMA in the beginning? Did you do some stuff at FEMA?
I did. When I retired, I had a friend that was one of the senior administrators at FEMA, and he called me and he said, hey, I know you're not ready to retire yet, but I got this job that I think you'd be perfect for. And the job was a federal coordinating officer, which is the position itself works directly for the White House. You're assigned by the president. When the president declares a disaster, at that time, there was 18 of us. Now I think there's 30, maybe even more. And so you were assigned, your paperwork was signed by the president, and you were responsible for all federal assets, including DOD, that were accessed for that particular disaster. And so I was with them and I didn't have much of a retirement from the fire department. I left on Friday. My first meeting with FEMA was on Monday. So I just went from one to the other. And so that was another.
It's like a logical progression, though. I mean,
it was perfect for me, and for a number of reasons. I had the operational background, but quite frankly, for people who might watch this, I learned a lot about politics when I was chief. This town, and I can tell you now, I've spent many hours in the White House war room over the years, and with every senior senator and every disaster, there's three things in life you can guarantee, and that's people, policy, and politics. And this town and the politics that are part of serving this town, quite frankly, there are some days you just don't want to go to work. But that experience prepared me to work at a much higher, at the national level. I really do believe that.
And that's another resilient theme,
Yeah, I think it is. It's I ended up really being blessed. I mean, I had a lot of big events. Katrina in Mississippi was my event.
Oh my goodness.
So about 120 disasters, and then a national special security event. So I was I was the lead with a huge team for State of the Union addresses, Super Bowls, inaugurations. I had Sail Boston in 2017, and I got tagged to clean up of the Boston Marathon bombing. So, they sent me to Micronesia. I spent 15
Where
weeks.
is that?
It's 2 hours south of Guam.
Okay.
After a typhoon. And so there's this kid who is getting off a military C-130 on this airport in the middle of nowhere, no communication, nothing, 15 people. And they said, all right, let us know what you need. Well, it's hard to do when you have no communication. And so we spent about 15 weeks going from village to village with interpreters, trying to figure out what it was we're supposed to be doing there.
That's amazing.
But it's at the end of the day, honestly, Kim, it's a blessing. It really was a blessing to do things that very few people get to do. Even the hard stuff. Chris and I were both, before I retired, we were both at 9/11. And we were both at Worcester when they lost the 6 guys in Worcester. So
Yeah, I remember that.
hey, that's the hard stuff. And it is hard. Don't get me wrong, but it's also, I think it's also a blessing because you every event like that, you learn so much. And
And I think you guys probably are very, very grateful for everything.
Oh, yeah.
Use the word blessed
Yep.
several times. I mean, it definitely enhances your gratitude because you see all those things.
yeah, it makes you different. I can tell you that for me personally, it changes you, but you have a different perspective and a different respect for a lot of things you do.
Actually, I'm national. I mean, you guys are inspiring me right now because as I told you earlier, I'm doing a transition and I'm facing it. Things could be worse, right? That this big number that's coming up, you really do only have a day because you guys have seen people, I mean, across the world at their worst moments. And then you realize that you're blessed. I mean, that's inspirational for me.
Yeah, you realize that at any time it could be you, could be your family, and I think that gives you an unbelievable perspective and a philosophy on how you treat people.
I think Chris used the word empath. Was it Chris?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have that affliction. It's a blessing and a curse because
Yeah.
you care too much, you absorb it all. And I think that now that I know that about you, that explains why you're always communicating with us, even if it's just a small thing to let us know, because you're feeling the vibe of the town that they're anxious there. They just need the information. All they need, they just want a kernel of information to know that we're moving ahead.
Yeah.
And-
Right. Coming out of it. Right. And I think
Yeah.
one of
But
the
if you
things
feel
Chris-
it, you've got to
do well.
address it.
Yeah.
Nick, quick question. You mentioned briefly the politics and how back at the time you were chief, right? And how obviously it was difficult. And I was a kid and I was gone and call. So can you speak a little bit about that and maybe, something really interesting or a funny story that came about in your time as chief with regards to that?
I bet you this.
Well, wait. Let me
Quite a few characters, paragraph.
Hang on. I'm going to make this easier for everybody. So let's connect it to emergency response, right? Typically in psychology, we're all taught that people have one of 3 responses: fight, flee, or freeze.
Yep.
Why don't you kind of compare and contrast that to whatever story you choose, politics versus emergency response? Because you probably don't want people who flee or freeze on your crew if you're fire chief, right? But politically, maybe you need something different and you have to kind of go against the nature that is in you to navigate something. So maybe that little piece will help. Sorry,
So-
I wanted to.
No worries.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, if we're talking about fight or flight, right? That fits right into the realm of politics on every single level. It doesn't matter if it's local or a national level. And absolutely applies to the fire service and Nick's job with here as a chief and with FEMA, without a question of a doubt. I'll let him speak to his side of politics in the 70s, and then I'll give you my view in regards to that.
I have to tell you that looking back on what I thought was torture then, that was a piece of cake to what Chris has to deal with now. I didn't have social media, Joey sitting in his underwear in his mother's basement, typing nasty. So I didn't have to deal with that. I had the town paper, and I had, occasionally a trip into the bakery to answer questions. That was really it. So I didn't have nearly that type of scrutiny or that type of that pressure. The political pressure more often came from either elected officials or, and you folks in Jerry, you see it all the time, people that think they were elected as officials. And, and some you have to just deal with directly. And quite frankly, some I learned early on, particularly with the town paper, and it's the same with social media. If it's not worthy of responding to, you don't, because every time you respond, you open the door for 15 other responses. And, I just adopted this philosophy that if it's important, I will address it. If it's just arrows, then I won't, and it will go away. And it does. It just fades. Back then, town papers, it's only good for a couple of days, and then you're on to the next week, and everyone's, bated breath waiting for us to see who's getting shot at the next week. So it really, looking back on it, while it was tough for me then, that was a walk in the park compared to what it is.
That's a great point. Yeah, it's a great
It
point.
really is.
It's not the same now, is it?
And no, it isn't. And
Yeah, it's not.
First time.
Again, we're not looking to get into any politics, but I want to acknowledge very quickly that I'm very happy that Nick is going to be on this public safety board. We definitely need a new fire station and a police station. Lieutenant's speech a couple of years ago at town meeting with tears in his eyes, talking about the health issues from the guys at the, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I think we need to put some urgency on that for sure. We're aware of some health issues at the police department too. Okay. I've got some people in there I'm very close to, and I can confirm that. So both situations have tremendous amount of urgency, and I'm very happy that Nick is going to be on that board. I hope you end up being the chair. And as this goes forward, first meeting's coming up in a couple nights, right?
But that's also another difference. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The difference, I mean, Chris has to navigate keeping firefighters happy in that space right now. And that's going to be very, very challenging. And I think it's a testament to you for the people that stay, because I think you appear to me as a very, very good leader that would want to stay.
You know what? Thank you. I have a really great group of men and women in the firehouse right now. And that for any chief is an absolute blessing, because it's not always that way. And whether it's union side or it's personnel side or it's command staff side, there's a lot of years that go through that where it's just nothing but bumps and bruises. And I had that from 2015, 16, and 17, because I was kind of dragged through the mud a little bit when I was appointed the acting chief. And that was, it goes back to Nick's view on politics. And that was not one of the things I was going to let get me. My hide's a little thicker than most. And it goes back to the consequences of social media and interaction and speaking your piece. Anyone who knows me knows that if they call me at 2 a.m, I would come do anything for them. They also know in the same respect that if you come after me personally or my department, my family, then beware. That's me.
That's why I keep apologizing to you.
It's the truth, right? So I get that piece of it. Down here, I think we're in a different time with different views and different philosophies. But in general, for public safety, this community's been phenomenal. I mean, not like a little supportive, hyper supportive. Certainly since I've been chief, without a question of a doubt, whether that's town meeting, budget, staffing, all of it honestly has been exceptional. And I'm grateful. I am super, super grateful. A lot of chiefs, and we can see this in surrounding towns, I don't have the support that we have as a department. Me personally, the support I get for myself and my family, which is also, some of these people are being antagonized to no end for their opinions or how they feel about the growth of their fire department or their mission. And Hull has been behind this fire department for as long as I can remember, since I was a kid, when I pulled my first alarm on D Street by the projects. My brother dad was going to beat the crap out of me, right? I wanted to see the fire trucks, right? So yeah, box 343, the corner of D Street and Central Ave. I'll never forget it. I think I have it in my cellar, Jerry, to be honest with
funny.
you.
You know,
I get it, Kev, I get it, the dynamics of it.
well, you know, I had been back. What year was the Q Street fire in the election?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Okay, so I'd only back 5 years, and I'm talking on my phone, and I see these cinders going across my deck. I'd never seen like charred pieces, again, square an inch. And how did you navigate that day with the town election going on?
Wasn't that special? Actually, I had that road kind of opened up. I don't know how it got plugged, but when I was putting equipment on, I knew what was going on that night, quite frankly. And so when it was all evolving, had given direction to run people down Beach Ave and make sure they get to town hall. And some people were frustrated. People are very set in their ways. So you leave your house and come out of, our street and take a right and go to work, and you drive to Weymouth, Quincy, or Newton, and come back. You come back down the Task Ave, take a left from our street, and go home. Disrupt that pattern of traffic for whatever reason. It doesn't matter if there's 3 other avenues. They want to go down the Task Ave, take a left from our street, and go to the house, right? It's just the way it is. So that was, there was a little learning curve there for traffic. Because again, we had 8 towns here. We had a lot of people here, a lot of work going on, not to burn down the whole neighborhood.
It was the windiest of days too, again, because
it was crazy.
It was just go by my house.
It was much like the conflagration on Sunset Point. Back when Nick was the chief. So same possible scenario, just a different outcome, and good people. Everyone working hard. These guys, they work hard. They take direction well, and it's like I said, blessed. What a great department right now. Is I'm gonna miss it.
A lot of good guys. I just had some focaccia bread from one of the guys from your department.
Yeah.
That really raised some eyebrows. And is one of the best people have ever had.
Wow.
I had some of it personally too, so I don't get a lot of gifts. I am management at the union. So it's like, but I do get my gifts that I'm not, you don't have to be afraid of. And the focaccia was one of them. So I had that for sure. So it was really good.
No, I see a lot of young guys too, like the police department. There's a lot of young guys coming in, right?
Yeah.
I think a number of years back, maybe 5-6 years back, you had an issue with people leaving, right? Because they were being held and things like that. But staffing levels have really evened out from what I understand. And there's going to be further increases maybe.
We're doing great. Honestly, and that was a change of the administration in town hall, quite frankly. I've been asking for staff as the deputy chief since 2007. And then again, as chief started in 2015. And it was only in the last 3 years that we've actually been able to add staffing to the fire department. For the first time, we've been short since 1991, dramatically short. We lost a third of the department when the stock market crashed in 87. And that started 87, 89, 91, 92. But we lost, 14 guys in that interim there. And we're literally bare bones out here for this town for a very long time. It was 20 plus years before we got one spot back. So it's been an ongoing thing. And, we don't have fiscal impunity, right? I get it. And so there's needs in the town as well, right? And things that go on day to day, police, fire, DPW, there's things, the sewer department, there's always things. So, to be cognizant of that and pay attention to the impact on the residents and the services as well, and be truthful about it, I think was what our victory was. We told the truth about our staff, and we explained it. We met with the advisory board and we walked through the paces of what it means to have X amount of people on duty every day for retention, as you talked about, Jerry, because we were short here. We lost in the interim when I came on as chief in 2015, 16, 17. I think that I think we moved about 9 guys out. Some left, some quit, some transferred. But we were at rock bottom for a little bit there, and for 28 months plus, and then started getting them back little by little. And that comes with collaboration. Honestly,
it's not easy.
The community, contracts, negotiations. It really, there's a lot to it. other than just, banging yourself on the chest saying we got 2 more guys this year. Well, it took us 35 years to get the first 2 guys, right?
Yeah.
36 to get lieutenants. So
It's pretty incredible. Yeah. And it does. It says a lot about the success you had over the last couple of years with the new administration. That's great. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's asking and meeting with them and saying, hey, listen, I'll go to the fire for you. I have no problem with that, but we got to go as a team. And they've done that repeatedly every year, right? It's like whether you're reducing sick time or educational items or training. It's just like there's no more. We removed that complacency part and the frustration part on the wage and training, and right, it's a collaboration. And now we're working on wellness programs, cancer programs, which were all these things internally that are a benefit to retention of the employee, which is going to matter long term down the road, long after I'm gone.
Chris, the young guys in general throughout industry, in general, they don't have a good name, right? They're on the phones all the time. They don't show up. Work 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Whatever the schedule is. What are you seeing on the fire department?
I think that's an honest conversation, and understanding the fact that for the longest time, the job is about being there. Schedules changed. I think with putting people and their families first changed that. Whether these are young adults without families or senior guys with families, being responsive to the fact that, listen, it's a dangerous job. It can be long hours. Some people die. There's like a litany of things there. Those stressors now on these younger adults, they're very real to them. Whereas older guys like myself, my brother, we were just trying to pay our mortgage. It's different now. They have a different value on their personal time, on their life, their health expectancy. So they want to be compensated, and they want to know that the town's looking after them and their health and welfare. It's not unreasonable. It should be that way. And we're really climbing into that. We have been for years, but we're really going fast forward right now with that. And I think it's super cool because the buy-in from the members of the union and the people it impacts the most, right? Because they have to serve the community, right? If you have sick guys, they can't help you, right? So to protect them and take care of that piece is huge, Sherry.
Yeah, it's as simple as
Very
that.
generational.
I think you have a really good select board now as well. And if everything makes sense and lines up, I think that you're going to have no issues going forward, to make everything as smooth as possible.
Yeah, that is the case. There has to be a collaboration on multiple levels for things to work. They can't, I'm not saying we're not going to have differences of opinion, but there has to be a collaboration to understanding that public safety is here, right? It's here, right?
It's way up there. Yeah.
Here, right? This is the backbone of everyone's life every single day. Whether we're responding on 20 calls or 2 calls. And I think that's at the forefront right now, and it's being acknowledged. And I think part of that was we had a lot of guys sick. We had a lot of guys get sick with cancer, right? And we're not the only department, but that was like one of the things that kind of pivoted us in a different direction to be like, if we don't tell the story, nobody knows.
Yeah, I was in 2024 town meeting, but I watched it a couple of weeks ago, and your deputy chief made such an emotional plea. I mean, I was almost crying when I heard it. I mean, and you have to tell that real story because these are real human beings that are putting their lives and health on the line. So it's really nice to hear that you're getting supported.
What's amazing, there's a ton of stories, and my father's next door neighbor had a massive heart attack, survived by the grace of God. Right? And there's a long list, and I know you guys know about every single one of them. But that to me is why it puts it way up here, right? Just like the police department, I think they were the first ones there because obviously they're on patrol, they're all over the place, just by seconds. But that's the way it works out. But that's who you depend on in the worst possible situation of your family, right? Whoever it is. And so it's a no-brainer. The existing building is far too old. There's not enough space. It's going to get done. The town, I think, is absolutely going to vote for it. That's who should obviously make the decision and will. And I think, like I said, to me, sooner the better. If it's going to take 5 or 10 years, I think it might be too long. We need to find.
We're going to get there, Jerry. I mean, we have a different demographic in town too, as well. We have a lot of new residents here. We have a lot of new people in town in general, right? Some will go to town meetings, some will come to forums, some just won't, right? And vote their heart or what their passion is. I think the message is very clear, and all the boards have been great. It's been super supportive. Both police and fire they're aligned. So I think the mission is super clear. I think the need has been acknowledged. I don't think we have to beat this thing to death any further. I think it's just a matter of getting the committee together, getting it opened up, getting the conversation going, and then putting this thing in motion. And then just let it go. And we'll see what the economy does and how it's driven. And then, and hopefully, we're not 10 years down the road, we're 5 or 6, but I think we're a good 5.
I think so, yeah.
And then we get it done.
Yeah, it's funny. These projects can take as long as you put, that urgency on it. Like if you want to secure a piece of land, you can do that in a year. If you want to get plans drawn, you can do that in 6 months.
That's
If
right.
you want to start construction and go, and it can take a year and a half. So you can get something done in, I think, 3 years with that sense of urgency. That's my only point, and I'll drop it.
Nick, do you have any nostalgia about the fire station changing? Or
It will be interesting to see. There is so many stories about that station, things that you obviously the guys can't get away with now. I could tell you 100 stories. I mean, we have back when it was one long bunk room at A Street, we would have the engine and the rescue against the ladder, and we would have bottle rocket wars. And we had those old ladder back chairs, and so we could put the old glass Coke bottles that came out of the Coke machine back then, and you stick a bottle rocket in it, and the goal was to shoot it out the window at the other end. And so we would have to pile the mattresses up and to duck behind the mattress. But you couldn't block the window, so to make sure that everyone had an equal shot at the window. We set a couple of lockers on fire. It was
couldn't be in a better place to
you could do those things, and no one knew it. And now we'll see the statute of limitations has run out on that now. So
there you go.
So there was a lot of fun. There was a lot of water buckets and trap doors, and I'll tell you one funny story that all the drains in the department on A Street are, we call them scuppers, which is the lids, but it's a drain system that's supposed to run out into A Street, into the storm drain. And during it might have been 78 out, but shortly after, if it wasn't shortly after that, we had a code in the department because we were all in the same frequency then. We didn't have our own dispatch system. And when clams came in on the beach after a storm, it would be our job to tell the communities around us, and it would be a simple, back then it was either 458 was our call sign or 601. It would say to all departments on the network, they're in. That would be it, and they would send pickup trucks down to get sea clams. So while we collected a pickup truck bed full of sea clams after one event, and so we're literally the entire group is on the main floor. We had pulled the trucks out and we're shucking clams.
Nice.
And we're just flushing things down the scuppers. Well, the scuppers clogged. They had clam guts in. And so someone had the brilliant idea to take one of the hoses, stick it in one end, and clear it, figuring we would blow everything into the drain at A Street. We happened to pull this off just as the deputy, who was Cox at the time, fiery little Irish guy, he's walking in his white shirt and his tie, and all the covers come off, and there's clam guts to the ceiling, all over him. And I didn't realize you could paint hydrants in the middle of the winter, but I learned it that day. As we were sent out to paint hydrants, and so.
Oh my goodness.
And that's the fun stuff. I mean, that's rookies. We would put with snorers. We had metal frame beds then. So we would snorers, we would hook a 12-volt battery to the bed frame. And as soon as they'd start to snore, they'd lean back and put their arm on the bed rail and they'd get jolted up, and it would solve their snoring problem. So, yeah,
Double of blood
still
conditioning.
a lot of fun, but it was definitely different. You get away with a lot more than
You guys are talking about young people, and I know two guys that are war correction officers. They're retired now, but they used to pal around in their 20s. And then the captain or sergeant, and they were at Nashville Street Jail, actually, with Charles River Jail. And they said, I think the 3 to 11 shift would be better for you guys, because if you staying out, so they'd go out at 3 o'clock, stay out till 1 in the morning, and then all of a sudden they're not there at 7 a.m. So, yeah, there's workarounds.
I'd like to talk to the topic of the younger generation coming into the workforce. And this is a little more for Chris than Nick, but I'm very curious, Chris, if, there's this idea about quality, lifestyle, all of that. But I've noticed a shift in conversation. I'm a business owner as well. And some of the younger folks that we hire into our factory, I've noticed the conversation when they're talking about their families and, their values and what they want. They don't call it this, but I zoom up a little bit and realize that what they're talking about is the difference between lifespan and health. And I'm curious if that has entered the conversation at all, because the fire department sees a lot of elderly, a lot of, people who are needing more help than maybe the average member of the community. And as your younger workforce is entering, has this entered the conversation yet, or are we not quite there? Like, what are your thoughts on that and how that's impacting the way that, you guys have to recruit as you have people retire from the system and bring younger blood in?
Oh, it's there, Jake. The conversations are in the wide open. There's no question about that. On early interviews, pre-interviews, we ask a lot of questions, right, as we're vetting people. And then with our background checks and so forth and so on, it's an absolute concern. First of all, when you don't have this younger workforce committed to a job for 5 years or less across the whole country, right? I mean, think about that for a second. Now you're asking someone who's 21, 23 years old to come and commit to a job for their entire adult life, knowing that 2/3 of the people they're working with are either dead or sick. Right. So there's legitimate concern with the younger recruits coming in. They're well versed. They're educated. The internet will give you anything, anytime you want it, as you know. But they research and they get it. We lost guys here because of our staffing, because they're worried about dying. So they were, and some of them had young kids or newlyweds or had a mortgage to pay. It was like based on the wage. So there's a lot of things. But yeah, when your mortality comes to the front side a lot, right? Because whether it's the birth of a child or the death of an elder or someone with terminal cancer, so you see the full gamut on the service. And these are young men and women you're asking to do that job, right? And they're not used to it. This isn't Grand Theft Auto, in Gameboy. The reality is these things are your neighbors, your friends, and family, and that's a lot to consume. And I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things we're really working hard right now is overall wellness. That has to do with physical and mental wellness inside the department. And we're working on a really, really comprehensive, good package that we're going to put inside the fire department in very short notice between now and midsummer. That's going to give our new and our senior guys and our middle guys access to a benefit that helps them with their mental wellness, with holistic healing, with a dietary thing, so that help ease some of that, so we don't lose them, because it only takes one scare and some people will just leave. This isn't the job forever that my brother took or I took in the 80s, because it's just not anymore. And they'll reflect on that and say, listen, it's a great job and I want to be here. And this is, it's not my calling, because I don't want to be in a burning building, or I don't want to see someone, in a traumatic event where I can't help and not be able to digest that the next day. and come back to work. So we've had a lot to do. I think as the fire service, we have fallen short in biblical proportions with helping our employees with PTSD without a question of a doubt. And so it's something we've been working on for a while and in Hull, and it's coming to fruition now. So yeah, they're aware, Jake. They're very well aware. And if it means that they're not getting a paycheck or a pension, it doesn't mean they'll leave. They'll just leave.
I'm glad to hear you guys are acknowledging PTSD because we kind of talked about growing up in less than favorable homes and whatever. And there's a little bit of a PTSD element to that. And that then you get somebody on the force and that exacerbates it because, you know, oh, this is a call, what's going to happen? Maybe it's a horrific incident that you're responding to. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, and that's police, fire. It's our dispatchers as well. And we can't leave them out of the equation either. There's a lot that goes on. You know, every call is very dynamic in itself. And some guys come back and they're quiet. We're working on a peer group to help as well. So yeah, there's a lot, Kim. There's a lot to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
We've had, our line of duty death with John Clasby, several years back. That had multiple impacts on people, and that equation, if there's, the opportunity for quelling, whether alcohol, drugs, or other, there's like a lot to manage and look at without putting everyone in one cart.
I get that. And we're lucky that we have the anchor for the ladder that you just talked about too.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for
Such
sure.
a great point. And those new kids coming in, like you said, they're coming out of high school or maybe a little bit of college, and bam, right? It must just hit them like a ton of bricks because we've all gone through, family members that get elderly, that have multiple issues, multiple calls, health issues, right? And they see that every single day. That's going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, and that's still going on. I mean, it's still some of them, have families. Some live alone, which isn't always the best case scenario either, right? Part of life, I get that. But everyone, digested in what their baseline is, right, so to speak, right? So if you grew up in a house of trauma, and you survive that, and you come into a job that's trauma, well, I can tell you that reoccurring trauma is PTSD, right? You don't have to negotiate that one. That's just the fact of life, whether it's across the gamut. So I think keeping a close eye on that and being cognizant of your employees and what they need is huge. And I'm not even on a soapbox here. I know, because I'm one of them. So it's like, I get it. I get the gist of it. And, if you expect people to come back, and to do their job, not harm to themselves doing it, then you have to provide services.
It's different too. I give Chris a lot of credit for doing this because it's a trend that needs to be followed because people are also different. And I'll give you a perfect example. I came on the job. It was the end of the World War II vets and the Vietnam vets. So these were structural people. They knew chain of command. That's all they knew. But there was no debriefings. There was no PTSD. It hadn't even been defined yet. And now, use myself as an example. I have been on the job 2 weeks. 2 weeks a day is my very first night shift. We had a double fatality on base. My very first night shift. And I remember it like it was yesterday because it was, well, suck it up, kid. That happens.
That was how it was. Yeah.
And so it's so much better now than it was in terms of being able to recognize PTSD, being able to treat stress disorders, and the things that come with it. That makes a huge difference. I actually saw it at federal level too. We saw that a lot at the federal level. They had, marginal plans, but they're not with it yet either. So I think what they're doing here, and I give Chris a lot of credit for that, is exceptional, and it will lead to a healthier workforce.
For sure.
Have you guys seen? I'm sure you've heard there's a stigma around mental health somehow being different than all other aspects of health. And I think a lot of the values that are coming in with the younger generation is that they're one and the same. And just working on all of them, right? That holistic approach. Is that part of, Chris, what you're talking about bringing into the force this year is sort of that holistic approach, or is it something else?
100%. It's another piece of the puzzle, along with the psychiatric piece. The nutritional piece is like, it's really cool, Jake. We're working on it. I wish I could just roll the whole thing out right in front of you right now, but it's still a work in progress. But it is going to be absolutely beneficial. And I think not only are we going to be successful, but it'll probably have some movement across other departments as well, internally, because they're not without stress themselves. It's not just police and fire, it's not first responders. I mean, there's no question the guy driving the snowplow getting yelled at freaking 24 hours a day isn't feeling great about himself either. Right. There's a lot of things that come into that across the community through our departments that this will benefit from once we get it squared away and tailored and fitted. But yeah, I think that's all of it, Jake, right? We have to encompass the whole thing, right? Because we know at a national level exactly what the problems are. There's not a lot of people that are bold enough to stand up and say, yeah, it's a problem.
When Nick was talking, it reminded me of my grandfather. He was a World War II vet, and he wasn't the pilot, but he dropped the bombs.
From the car. Yeah. Yeah.
And he came back, and everybody said Walter's different, but they didn't talk about why Walter was different. And he built a successful auto repair shop in Roxbury, and then about a decade in, they got held up in the gunshots, and it triggered him, and he had to walk away from that. And he wound up adapting, being resilient, and wound up working nights at running the UPS mechanics in Watertown. But he would go behind closed doors for a while, and people wouldn't understand why. But in hindsight, we know that it was PTSD. So I think it's awesome that you're going to start addressing that, the nutrition aspect. I wish that had been introduced in my generation a long time ago. That's a very important piece.
The newer recruits coming out, they're healthier. Quite honestly.
It's not surprising.
When I was cooking, as a captain on a shift or a private, I can tell you there wasn't anything I was cooking that was healthy. I mean, there was 30 pork chops in the oven, and there was risotto, and we were going to bed with a belly full of food, but there was nothing healthy about it. These young men and women, they get it. They get it. We're dealing with internet babies and in some cases COVID kids, right? So we're really dealing with a different group, a different dynamic of young adults that have been saturated with information, number one, for their entire adult life. These 20-year-olds, when you think about it, I mean, I don't know how old the smartphones. I think they're 15, 16-year-olds. Are they 15 years old this year? Was it 2006? No. Something like that, right? Is it 15 years? So when you think about the amount of technology consumed by these young adults and their access to information, there's no more smoke in marriage. You can't say to someone, X, Y, and Z. They're like, nah, you're full of crap. And they just looked it up, right? We're not buying that, one of those things. I dealt with that with my son for the longest time because he's a bug. So it's like, he's like, no, Dad, that's not accurate. I'm like, okay, I kind of made that up. I was hoping it was going to work.
So the first iPhone launched in 2007.
2007.
Wow. Yeah. And just think about that, right? There were some sorts of smartphones before that, but the iPhone really made it. It was transformative.
20 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 20 years to think about that, right?
Yeah.
You have 18-year-olds that didn't know a world without them.
My first job out of college was at a Cellular One service center at 306 Northern Ave in South Boston in the Marine Industrial Park. And that was back when you installed them in the car. So transceivers, a Novotel bag phone.
Motorola, the bag phones.
Then the flip phone came out in, I think, 89, and it was $3,500.
Hey, listen, that whole flip phone thing, Kim, that was, not to digress, but that was Motorola's biggest hedge. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
The Razor phone that Motorola built, they spent more money than on any other.
Where'd he go?
Device on that flip phone, the phone. I think they manufactured at the time 2 million of those. It was kind of an epic failure. I had one. I kept it. And the reason I kept it, I'm glad I did now. It's one of the few phones still left that you can use a SIM card interchangeable international. So So Motorola
Oh,
got that part right.
interesting.
The product didn't
Motorola's
help.
fantastic. I
what
went
you-
on to go into wireless facilities, help get them built, and Motorola was always the product
Sure.
behind
Yeah.
whatever.
And the funny thing, what Moto didn't realize is that when they brought that phone out, it was one of the first few phones that could take a picture, although it took 20 minutes, right? You
Mhm.
could take it and keep uploading. It wasn't like a Polaroid. That crippled Polaroid because in that instant, no longer did they need film.
That's
It-
right.
It changed the Polaroid was in big films forever.
There was a big Polaroid factory or in Norwood, I want to say, that shut
Yes.
down pretty quickly with the advent of phones. I mean, back then I never thought that everybody would have them, but now nobody. It's replaced landlines in a lot of cases.
So,
Since we're on,
right?
oops,
Oh, geez.
You got
Take-
3 left.
Oh, my phone. I can do that. Which one did we do that?
there we go.
Yeah.
Is it?
Very quickly before we wrap up, I'm curious if either of you have an opinion on AI, machine learning, which the new version of that we've branded it because marketers think it's easier to understand as AI. Any thoughts on how that's impacting emergency services or how it might impact it in the future or anything that you've observed so far?
So it's built in a lot of the software by now, right? Whether it's for a three-dimensional view of buildings, for pre-planning, things of that nature. It's got a ways to go, in my opinion, to get it, a little more fine-tuned for the fire service.
I think he's dead.
I think so.
I know that it's been incorporated into drones and other things. Yeah, I think there's a great opportunity there, Jake, with it. So we'll see where it goes. It has its ups and downs, as everyone knows.
No, God, yes. I mean, I could get into a rabbit hole all day, and sometimes it's like, yeah. I mean, I'm just and you're believing it, and then you have to cross check it, make sure it's telling you the truth. But yeah,
We got a couple minutes left. Of what I would like to cover very quickly is maybe some of Nick's time in Mississippi with Katrina. And then
Okay.
there's a story about Chris, before I forget it, life-saving story of some kind near West Corner 20 plus years ago. I forget all the details, but I remember it being in the paper.
Oh, that was the Weir River Rescue. We put a couple of people under the bridge there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick, why don't you go first, though? That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, Chris got, is that a Medal of Valor for that?
All right.
Medal of
Yes.
Valor?
Medal of Valor.
Well, Medal of Valor for that statewide. The Mississippi was, for me, it was very eye-opening. And it's funny because, Jerry, I'll tell you, before I retired, we had Worcester and we lost 6 guys. And I said, okay, that's the worst it's going to get. And then right after that, I ended up at 9/11. I said, all right, can't possibly get worse than that. And then the next thing you know, in 2005, I'm being sent to Jackson, Mississippi, with Katrina on the way, and ended up running that operation for 18 months. And I've done, after the fact, I've probably done 100 presentations on Katrina and around the country. It was, for me, it was certainly eye-opening to see how bad is bad. And so I certainly learned a lot. I had a huge staff. I had, between Jackson and the coast, I had 4,700 people that were working on that event, including DOD, and our air missions and our comms people. So it was one, I refer to it as probably one of the most dramatic incidents I've seen. Right? When you see when Katrina hit, Mississippi's gambling was all by law on the water. It was all gambling casinos on barges.
Right.
And post day and a half after we finally got out, I was in a Humvee with some National Guard guys, and we found all, with the exception of one, of the floating casinos on the land side of Highway 90. And, okay, you figure we had a 35-foot storm surge, so you think things will be ugly around the coast. But it wasn't until about a day and a half later when I was out with the same National Guard doing some recon, where I took a picture, and I didn't realize it for 3 or 4 days when I looked at the picture I had taken of this 300-foot, 3-story gambling casino broken loose and on the other side of Highway 90. What I realized finally that really shook me was all of the streetlights were still intact, and there wasn't a scuff on the highway. So this actually came up and over everything and landed
Oh, wow.
on the
That's
lanes of Highway 90. And we found that up and down the coast. I have a great picture in my presentation. I was in a helicopter one day, out again doing inland recon, and we spotted this thing, and I asked the pilot to land so I could take a picture. And there's a house that was built after Hurricane Camille, 8 miles from the coast, 8 miles inland. And there was an 18-foot Boston whaler with the engine on it on the roof. So we figured that, the geologists and our weather folks, they tell us, well, that's because the surge from the Gulf and surge from Hurricane Katrina, which, by the way, was only a Cat 3 when it made landfall, but it had pushed so much water ahead of it that the surge 8 miles inland in the rivers was 30, in some cases 40 feet. And so it was, in a lot of cases, it was unsurvivable. We historically, we'd say that more the people that died in Katrina were almost.
Oh.
Can you see us? And so that event was, it was educational, first of all. And I talked earlier about feeling blessed to have opportunities that I've had, even the bad ones, because even the ones that stress you. And in that particular case, when I moved to the coast from Jackson, we had no facilities. Everything was trashed. So my crew, initial crew, which was only 7 of us in a satellite comms unit, we had to sleep in our cars for the first 10 days. And back, I will tell you a funny story about that. Back then, the government had a rule about when you got deployed and you went to get a rental car, it had to be a compact. Well, I can tell you, I don't fit in a compact when I have to sleep. So I had to learn how to sleep in the back seat. You couldn't open the window because the mosquitoes would drive you crazy. And you couldn't put the AC on. Couldn't put the AC on because you run out of fuel. So, I had to learn to sleep with one ankle in the steering wheel and one ankle up over the seat in front of me. And they would drop off gallon jugs of water in the morning, and I would dump it over my head and shave in the reflection of my car window. And I'll finish with one story. It's amazing how people are during disasters. People think they're at their worst. They're not really. They're actually at their best. I was actually brushing my teeth outside my car, getting ready to go into our little command vehicle one morning, about 6 a.m. And I just felt we had a very secure perimeter. We had armed people around our perimeter because of what was going on in New Orleans. And I just emotion. And it was a woman, and she was walking up. So she obviously got through security, or they let her through. And she never said a word. She walked up to me, reached in her back pocket, and held out a toothbrush. And because she saw me brushing my teeth. So I took my toothpaste and I ran a bead across it. And she brushed her teeth for a few seconds. I handed her my gallon jug of water. She rinsed it up, spit it on the ground. She put her toothbrush back in her pocket, and she walked away. Never said a word. I have no idea to this day who that lady was. But that's what she needed at that particular moment. And, that's what the disastrous moments is about, I guess.
Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I just can't even imagine being involved in that situation with that much disaster and just damage and death everywhere, right? Crazy.
Yeah, it was a long 18 months, but phenomenal people. Probably the strongest governor I ever worked with, Haley Barbour, and his crew. So it was, I got a chance to hang out with some pretty special people down there.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I remember just watching it and seeing so much damage.
So
Captain
Chris, how about your,
was what it was. What's that?
sorry, Chris, how about your funny, your not funny story, but your life-saving story? Yeah. How far back was that? I forget all the details.
I think that was 2007, right? When that happened, that we got a call for kayakers trapped in the culvert at West Corner. I was the captain there, so it had to be 2007, I believe. And it was back in 2000, late 2000s. And Jay King was on the engine coming out of the hill, come down and at the bridge down at West Corner, and he pulled the engine up, and there was supposedly there was 5 people that were involved. He only saw 2, and called me, and I was the captain coming in, and said that we got people trapped in the culvert, and jumped off the bridge to help him. And by the time he hit the first person, he was in the culvert himself and trapped. So when I had pulled in there, we had a great response there from mutual aid and the police, state police, boaters, everyone that came up. We had a big flood tide and was pushing through there. I just happened to be the guy that climbed down the ladder and was in the hole pulling people out. But we had a great rescue there. We got a bunch of people out of there. God, that was national news. That was on the front page of a paper in Ireland.
Really?
If you can believe that. Yeah.
Right across the continent.
Yeah, I did
And
it with CNN, Nations, and everyone.
That's wild.
And there were
Yeah,
5 people? Were there 5 people down there?
It was a mess down there, Jerry. They were kayaking, and the kayaks got sucked towards the culvert. It didn't have the grates on it like it does now. That's what changed the grates down there. So one went after the other one helped, the other one under, another one went under. So yeah, I was pulling people out of there by their ponytails and by their underpants to get them up out of that mess down there. Yeah, it ended up working out great. I was glad to get I've known JK my entire life, since we were 7, 8 years old. So the last thing I wanted to do is they kept saying, this woman was panicking. She's like, "Are we going to live?" I'm like, "Well, my best friend's behind you. So you're coming out first because he's not staying, so she was happy about that. They're all residents at the time. So I still see him and have a few laughs and hugs and a few tears left out. But they were happy to be alive for sure. I'm happy they're alive.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great stuff. Thank you guys again. I appreciate it. I don't know if Jake and Kim might have some clothes and stuff, but again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Very genuine.
Everything that you've done.
And thank
Locally,
you for all the contributions to help. Everyone gets a little chance to hear a bit of your story. So we thank you for joining us and just sharing yourselves and your stories with everybody.
Thanks very much. Appreciate
Yeah,
it. And Jerry, just for data purposes, we finally figured out between the two of us, I think there's some 74 years of service to the town.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness. God bless you guys. Actually, that brings it. What's the fire department doing for the 250th? Anything special?
Oh boy, there's a litany of things going on. Yeah, I'm trying to navigate. This is also the 25th year of 9/11. So there's like a lot going on aside the regular town stuff, the birth of our country. Whatever, I'm winding down, Kim. They're kicking me out in like 14 months. So whatever they ask me to do, I'm going to do while I'm here. So
I didn't want to mention that you're a lame duck, but technically,
yeah, but he could be in the situation room next week.
I'm not lame till I go, Jerry. You know me.
Someone called me.
I'm staying gone.
Be around for a long time and be present.
Thank you both so much.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we'll see you guys. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Appreciate
Have
it.
a good one.
Appreciate it.
Take
Okay,
care.
bye.